Good evening and welcome to the Gallant Few podcast. My name's Jamie Royals. I'll be hosting this episode today, and you'll remember my name from the Premier League shows that we do. The Premier League's obviously and pre-season just started now, so we thought we'd do a little show based on some of the transfers that are happening or have actually happened. Along with me today, you'll obviously know the usual suspects. Colin, how's things?
I'm very well, Jamie. Thanks very much for having me on. I love the madness of close season Premier League. It does, it does turn into WWE at times. It's full of drama, but I do like it's the best time to watch Sky Sports News, I'd say.
Good. And we've got the ever faithful Graham. Graham was missing the last couple of episodes based on the fact that Bournemouth were winning. But for some reason, the manager's now sacked, so Graham's come back. Graham, how are we?
Yeah, good mate. Thanks for having me on. Happy Sunday. Gary O'Neill, no more.
So you had a part of it?
I mean, obviously, absolutely. The owners of Bournemouth listen to this. Yeah, it was his time. He was always going to get it back. Come on, he's always going to get it back.
He did have a poor couple of results at the end of the season, didn't he? But
No, it is a bit shady. It is a wee bit
yeah,
shady. I'll hold my hand up and say it's a wee bit shady, but that's football. Do you know what I mean? That's
yeah,
what it is. Players get sold, so why can't managers get sacked?
fair point. As I said, we're doing today's episode just based on some of the media reports that are going around. As Colin says, if you ever watch Sky Sports News, they've always got a breaking news going on every 10 minutes at the moment. Even sitting here today, sitting here this evening, there's a couple that have already happened. But we've got pre-season pretty much kicked off for most clubs on the 1st of July, so a lot of teams will be coming back to the training. So we thought it'd be good to just kind of have a run through of some of the big transfers. I can't go through all of them, obviously, but we thought we'd pull out some of the most ones that we'd probably talk about or looking forward to seeing. Colin, I don't think we could start anywhere else, but obviously Arsenal. Arsenal went into the end of the season saying that they were going to spend all this money, and they've kind of done that, haven't they? Especially if we believe the race deal's pretty much done. So far, they've got sworn in a Kai Havertz, which kind of come out of nowhere, in my opinion, for 65 million, and Declan Rice looks to be done for 105, which will be a record for a British player. And I think there's also talk of Julian Timber, a centre back, coming in from Ajax. Any of these guys stand out to you? What's your thoughts on them?
Well, first of all, on Arsenal in general, I think we all said last year the summer will give an indicator of as to where Arsenal see them, and I think we all had a bit of a worry. What happens to the likes of Martinelli and Saka after this season? Whatever happens to they move on? Do they move on to a Bayern Munich or Real Madrid or whatever? And I think they well felt that they'd be waiting to see where Arsenal see themselves. If Arsenal start going in for 5-10 million pound players for here and there, for I don't know, Norway or something, then you probably wouldn't have the faith that their big guns would stay. I think Arsenal had to spend money to almost say, right, no, we don't want last season to be a one-off. We are in it for the fight here, and they've went and done that. I know you and I were chatting through the week about Havertz. I do see the sense in that. I think we can maybe look at how much money they spent on Kai Havertz differently, but in terms of that position where the argument is they've already got players in that position, but I think Arsenal struggled with depth last year. I know Graham's not a big fan of Trossard at all, but he did make the point time and time again that
Mhm.
when these players, there's such a big drop off between the bench and the first 11. So somebody like Havertz coming in that position, creating new competition, either Havertz has got to be better than what you have, or the rest of the players need to up their game. With the other two as well, and I know they're not confirmed yet, but I like Arsenal. They're building a bit of a spine here. I think they're adding more depth into the centre back area. Timber, I think he won the Dutch Player of the Year 2 years ago, and we all know Declan Rice. He's going to be a big player for years to come. So they're very much sorting out their spine in their team.
Would it surprise you based on, I know obviously the Kai Havertz and I know we both come at it from different points. 330 grand a week sounds a lot. Sounds a lot for a player that scored only 7 goals last season.
Yes, Well, I'm almost going to contradict myself here. I see the sense in going for somebody like Kai Havertz. I find the footballing angle makes sense. The financial angle is it's a bit much. It's a bit much. On top of what £60 million that they paid, I don't
Mhm.
think he merits that. But again, I think that's the way football's going.
Yeah.
The Saudi leagues popping up with a bit more competition for players that are going. I don't know if we'll come to that. Maybe once we get to Man City, but I think we're going to see Premier League clubs up in the ante with the wages.
Fair enough. Graham, just on obviously Arsenal themselves, there was a lot of talk about the players that they needed to make sure they got that push, to kind of have another challenge. Does Kai Havertz, Declan Rice, and Julian Timber represent that, or do you think they still need more?
I think one of my biggest bugbears with Arsenal was when you look at their signings in January when they want to push towards the title. I think I probably made it clear that I didn't think that Jorginho and Trossard were two players that were going to come in, walk straight into the 11 and kind of make them that much better to kind of affirm themselves for winning the title. I think two players in Havertz and Rice are going to immediately go into the starting 11 and are better than what they have currently. I think Timber is going to add more depth, certainly, to the back line. I'm not sure if he goes straight into that, but certainly more depth. So yeah, absolutely. Like, Havertz, I think's had a bit of a rough time at Chelsea. The guy is not a striker. He is not a number 9, as he was played with predominantly probably last season, certainly with Chelsea. Having seen him in the flesh, certainly when we played, when we were up against them a couple of years ago before he went to Chelsea, the guy is a sensational player. I think if Arsenal can get the best out of them, then wow. I still think they could do with a real out and out goal scorer.
Hmm.
I really like Gabriel Jesus, but I think that they could still do with a bit of depth up there. Other than that, I mean, yeah, I think as Colin just said about strengthening the spine of their squad, that's exactly what they're doing. And as I've said, more importantly, they're bringing in at least two players that make their starting 11 better, which is what you want. So well
Hmm.
and good strengthening your depth, getting better players in, replacing the ones going out. But unless you're strengthening your starting 11, then it's hard to kind of take that next step forward. So that's what they're doing, and I think they're two really good signings. Obviously, with Rice, people talk about the transfer fee. Listen, a player's only worth what you're willing to pay for them. Yeah, is it excessive for all us looking from the outside in? Absolutely, no question. But that's the Premier League financial bubble at its
Hmm.
best. If Arsenal are going to pay it, they're willing to pay it, then good on them. They're making a good signing.
Fair enough. I would agree. I think Havertz definitely adds depth. I wouldn't say he was an out and out. I don't think he's the key to, getting them that title. I think Rice massively improves them. The only one concern I would have is that some of the reports that got in the background. So I think Saliba's signing a new contract, which is what they want. Xhaka's moving on, and Partey's moving on apparently, or Partey they're struggling to maybe move on. So they would normally start in the starting 11. So if Rice was to get injured, then back to that depth question again, aren't they? That's probably just the only thing I would be worried about is you are improving the 11, but are you from a squad depth? It's probably not great. So again, I think they probably need a few more people.
Yeah, I think I'd spoke out it as well last season when I'd mentioned, that when they're pushing for goals and they're bringing on guys like Reece Nelson, etc. Right,
Yeah.
that's where their issue comes from. I do think we'll see more from someone like Emil Smith Rowe next season. I think he's been unlucky with injuries, but he's certainly a very good young player, a really promising talent. I think they will look to use him more next season. But look, yeah, definitely, I think that kind of midfield area is one that maybe a couple more and a real out and out striker. I think would really make them look good for next season and challenging for a title against an unbelievable Man City team.
Good. The next team I want to call out is Aston Villa. Aston Villa haven't done much business at the moment, but if you believe the reports, they're getting some pretty sweet signings on. They've already confirmed that they've picked up Yuri Tielemans on a free. I'm quite a big fan of Yuri Tielemans, and I think he'll do well in an Aston Villa midfield. The one that does surprise me, but you can obviously tell. I think, Graham, you said it last season, is that the pull of their manager will probably do them more benefit than anything else. And I think they're just about to sign the centre back Pau Torres, who's been widely regarded as one of Europe's top centre backs for the last 2 or 3 years. And I know a lot of teams have struggled to get him out of Spain, but it looks as though he's signing for Aston Villa for a nice 33 million deal. That screams awesome deal for me. Graham, what's your thoughts on that? Because I know obviously you've been very vocal about Unai Emery.
Yeah, listen, I think no one will disagree that the job he's done's incredible since he came in taking over for Steven Gerrard. Whatever they were from the time he took over to then, maybe the 5th, top 5 or top 6 teams, whatever it was. Paul Torres is a class signing. I mean, 37.5 million euros, 5.5 million of them are add-ons. I think that is an unbelievable bargain. I think by the end of this season we'll be talking about that as kind of he's one of the signs of the summer. He's fast along the ground as well. He's a really good player. I think that's an excellent signing. And added that to getting Yuri Tielemans in a free. I mean, you wouldn't have been surprised if you'd seen Tielemans go to one of the big 4 teams, really. I don't think you could see one of the big 4 teams maybe going from, whether that was to add depth. Obviously, Aston Villa, I think he'll be a starting player, but they are really, again, strengthening the spine of your team is important. And if I spoke about it there with Arsenal, if you're signing players that are going to go in and improve your starting 11, that's even more important. I think when you look at Unai Emery and his history in European competition, I would imagine that Aston Villa have got to be one of the favourites for the Conference League next season as well, with his prowess in Europe. And as I say, the signings he's making are excellent. So it's going to be really interesting to see who else they sign to kind of tie up their squad for next season. But they're certainly going to be very difficult to beat both in the league and in Europe.
Yeah. Colin, people forget about this player because obviously he injured himself and I think it was like a pre-season right before the season kicked off. And Aston Villa centre-back Diego Carlos, they spent big money on him, bring him in Sevilla. The thought of him and Pau Torres next to each other, like that screams pretty decent back line. And I know Mings kind of come into himself a little bit at the end of the season there, but that's pretty decent. You know what I think?
Cliche alert, but aye, this boy coming back from injury is going to be like a new signing himself. And I think I do think Emery will get more out of him than what Gerrard would have went. And I think the likes of Tyron Mings and that coming into a game, that's just an added bonus for. Again, we're going to talk a lot about depth in this podcast, but I think the best way to add depth is adding what's better than your starting 11. I think it's better to go in, add more quality to what's already there than the players who were your first choice picks last year. They become your backup or they need to up their game. I think once you start looking at players to fill up a number on the bench, that's all they really do. So I think this is a great signing with Pau Torres and the Costa coming back. Carlos coming back. I think they will be your main 2 centre halves next season. And again, I see Aston Villa really kicking up a gear. I think when Aston Villa signed Steven Gerrard as a manager, there was this kind of 45-year ambition of how they get themselves in European contention. And I think we're starting to see that really build. And I think they'll see themselves as serious contenders for a top 6 finish this year with the manager and the squad they've got. On Tielemans, just to circle back to that, I am shocked that just what Graham said, that Arsenal didn't go for him. So we know Rice is going to come in as the main man in the midfield, but if Partey's going, Tielemans is a great option to have, and I think he'd suit Arsenal style of play there. So him going into Aston Villa, I think he really adds something different to what they've got in the midfield. I'm looking forward to seeing, like I'd imagine most games him and McGinn will play alongside each other. Both would complement each other. If you think about McGinn, it's that kind of blood and thunder type player, and then Tielemans is just to finesse the stylish midfielder coming next to him. I'm looking forward to Villa next season.
McGinn just signed a new contract as well, didn't he? I think he just signed a new
Aye.
contract to keep him there a few more years. The one that I do like the look of, and he's actually, since Gerrard brought him through, he's actually just been getting better and better. He's also playing in the England under-21 tournament right now. Jacob Ramsey, like he's proper quality when you look at how he plays box to box. Isn't afraid of having a shot. I'd be interested to see how that team develops, as I said, especially with people like your Tielemans and stuff coming in, because they will improve that squad. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. I want to call this one. It's probably not big signings, but it's probably more about people they're losing and what they're replacing with. A lot of people's second team last season was Brighton. How well they played. Brighton have already lost one of their players, one of the big players in McAllister. They look to be losing potentially Casado. There's talk Chelsea have already agreed terms with him, but they haven't made an official bid as yet. But the transfers they've got coming in, so they've confirmed James Milner's come in on a free, but they brought in another player. Excuse me, who I'm really a fan of on a free as well. Dahoud. This lad he's played at, I think it was Leverkusen and Dortmund. And there's not much talk of them bringing many other people in, because there's this line that they've already done their shopping, and the people that they've got on the sidelines are actually going to be promoted to the first team and actually fill in these spaces. Do we think that's wise, or do we think should they be building on the success that they had last year, Graham? Obviously, they were, as I said, they had a lot of success in the way that they played. Do they play? Can they play like that again, like after losing two key players?
The thing is, this is Brighton. You can
Mhm.
go back the last few years, and all they do is lose key players and key personnel, and they always continue to succeed and probably overachieve. So I guess there's that question of why upset the apple cart and maybe do things differently. Right now, okay, Dahoud for Dortmund, he's got a hell of a lot of experience in the Bundesliga. I think he'll be a good player. Obviously, it's going to be hard to replace Caicedo anyway. He's their best player. However, saying that, they've got James Milner coming in, who's unbelievably experienced. Still, I just think he's still got a lot to offer. To be honest, I don't think you would have heard a lot of Liverpool fans grumbling if he'd maybe stayed maybe just one more year or something. I think he's
I don't
got
think
a
it was any
hell.
Liverpool fans that wanted him out. I think it was more to
Yeah,
do with the length of contract he wanted. I think
yeah.
he wanted a contract that offered more, and I think Liverpool probably they had bigger things to fight when it came to midfield predicaments, shall we say?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, when you look at James Milner, like guy is your typical. I mean, is there a position he can't play in the park as well? So he offers so much cover,
Mhm.
experience, and yeah, as you say, this Dahoud coming for Dortmund. I think, look, I wouldn't have thought this will be it though. I know they've said.
Mhm.
I still think you might find they'll maybe splurge and buy a player for a bit of money maybe later in the window. So I wouldn't say this is it completely over for them, but they have done their shopping, as you've said. Look, they're in a stable position. They've got the manager they want. They're playing extremely good football. Long may it continue.
And they've still got a couple of great players. I think that people probably would pick up if they could. The Matoma and Estupinian, arguably two of the players of the season. When you pick an 11, and a best 11 from last season, but they're very strong in their opinion that they're quite happy letting two players go per season. If you cast your mind back to last season, Colin, I think it was Ramsdale and the midfielder that went to Tottenham, wasn't it?
Aye.
And then the season before that, it was Ben White, which was like 50 odd million pounds. So they definitely maximise the money coming in, don't they?
They do, and in terms of the business model, they've got it down to a T, and they
Mhm.
really have in with the coaches that they've had, also Potter and then De Zerbi. They've really put a focus on coaches who can come in and get the best out of our current squad and who can take players up another level. I did say toward the end of last season, I think they need to change their approach for this summer, because it's the first time they've got European football, and every league in the world, anytime somebody, whether it be the Champions League, Europa League, or the Conference League, everybody tends to underestimate the impact that this extra 8 to 10 games
This
can have,
Thursday night game.
particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Thursday night game, in that, that it's an extra 90 minutes of football, it's an extra couple of days travelling, and see time again, but regardless of the league, whether it's Hearts for the SPFL or some, you know, I think we've seen West Ham last year as well, and Spurs the year before, Leicester the year before. They struggle to adapt to it. So I think Brighton are maybe got to shoot themselves in the foot, and I hope they don't, because I hope they don't fall into the trap of underestimating it, then having to go and spend big in January, then they panic buy in January, they don't get the value for money. But I do think they need to spend a bit more money. It's I don't think they can really rely on having the same amount of players make the step up, because you probably need an extra 2 or 3 players to make the step up. I do think that's maybe why James Milner's been signed, more for the the non-tangible side of the game, like having a experienced leader who helps the young players settle or helps players raise their game a wee bit. But I don't think it'll be enough. I think Brighton need to spend money.
They they do have. I mean, they do have plenty of experienced players that played in Europe as well, which I do think will obviously help. I think with Brighton, though, they will continue to focus on the Premier League more. I think obviously great getting a run in Europe or performing well, but I think very much for Brighton it'll be all the focus in the Premier League and continue to try and improve and see what they can do in the Premier League. But they've got plenty of players with European experience. Be interesting to watch them.
I think, see, just on that, I think we're going to, it's maybe a podcast in itself, but with the Club World Cup changing the format, and the onus is on the coefficient rather than who wins the league. I think we're going to see more teams take the Europa League and the Conference League a bit more seriously with how much money will be pumped into this Club World Cup. And Brighton, I think they should be keeping that in mind.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the young lad up front, Evan Ferguson. You know, the Irish lad. He's so young. He's so natural when it comes to the box. He just didn't stay away from injuries. And I think the thing for me is Brighton got so many goals across the whole of their middle pocket last season. It's whether or not they can still do that. Because if they don't, then it's all down to the striker. Going into a season and a European competition with Danny Welbeck and Evan Ferguson as your main two, possibly need another one there, don't you? Another two to fill that out. Graham, you looked as you were going to say something there.
No, just in Colin's point about the Club World Cup, obviously any of the teams in the big 5 leagues, if they're in the Conference or the Europa, they are not going to be going to the Club World Cup. I think it's one nation per country, other than if one of your country winners or the Champions League or something like that. So there'll be 2 English clubs, I would have thought.
But if you look at it, it goes in the coefficient points. So in theory, you could get more coefficient points over a few years from the Conference League to Europa League, because you get the same amount of points for one win in the Champions League and one win in the Conference League.
No, you don't.
Do you not? Am I talking pish?
No, you're
just we'll edit this bit out then, and we'll go back to the transfers.
It's definitely lessened as it goes down. For sure.
Is it 2025 that kicks in, that tournament?
Yeah.
So that's fine. So we've got plenty of dissecting to do before that even comes into play.
Totally.
Right. Arguably the transfer story of the window so far is Chelsea. I think we all agreed that them going into the window, due to financial fair play, balancing the books, they were going to not potentially struggle to get players out, but possibly struggle to get nominal fees for these players. But lo and behold, some Saudis just waved his magic wand, and all of a sudden, he's not only paying a premium for these players, he's actually giving them like a 400% pay increase. Kind of all come at the right time for them a little bit, Graham, isn't it?
Yeah, it's convenient, that.
Very convenient.
I think there's a lot. I don't know. There's
red tape, shall we say?
I don't know what's going on just now with all the Saudi money and whatnot, but look, for Chelsea, a massive clear out is needed. Obviously, we'd heard all these crazy stories about guys getting changed in the tunnels now are and the Janny closets. So I was like, I don't know where they were getting changed, but obviously needed this massive clear out. Look, they spent a mental amount of money in January, and yeah, I think it was over 200 million that they've now sold. I'm not including Ziyech in that, because obviously he's failed that another medical after failing a medical to go to PSG. He's now failed that medical to go to Saudi Arabia. So I'm not really totally sure what's going on with him, but as good as it is to see players coming into your club, I think Chelsea fans will be pretty relieved to see this clear out because of the talk, because of the amount of players that they've got in their squad, and the amount of wages. I did read that under Bowley they are looking to more incentivise rather than pay huge wages. So like your Mudryk, for example, he's not even on 100k. So like I think they're looking at a potential newish wage structure, and a lot of these players that are looking to get out are going to be some of the biggest earners. So yeah, much needed, not just to balance the books, but to balance the dressing room as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how their squad takes shape and what Pochettino does with it as well.
Colin, I think we'd need a separate pod to list all the players that are potentially going or have already left Chelsea. But we can probably focus on the two biggest ones at the moment. Excuse me. So Mason Mount was obviously potentially going to Manchester. Excuse me, going to Manchester United because they refused to pay the wage that he was asking for. And the talk on the wire, if you like, was that he was looking for 300 grand a week, and Chelsea refused to do it. However, on the last day, apparently they did offer him the 300 grand a week contract, and he turned him down and went, "No, it's too late now." So there is still some sort of a scattergun approach to that, surely. They've also got the probably arguably one of the best signings I think they've made in a couple of seasons as the lad coming in, Chris Nkuku. This guy's exciting, Champions League pedigree. Yeah, I don't think I ever see him play a bad game.
No, I think Nkuku will. I dread to say it because how many times over the last 25 years have we seen players of top European pedigree go to Chelsea and just absolutely bomb? So, with a hint of anxiety, I will say I think Nkunku will do very well for Chelsea. I think he's a Pochettino type of player. I think he's very coachable. He's a very rounded, intelligent footballer, and we've seen him, more notable against Rangers as well. He is a player, and I think if we can get a wee bit of stability at Chelsea, guys like Nkunku will come in and hit the ground running. But I think that's the big thing. We just copy and paste anything we've spoke about Chelsea over the last 6 months and just put in this pod. Basket case, too much going on. Scattergun, as you said there. We just need a bit of stability. And, for Chelsea's sake, moving on, players for the old guard have been there for a couple of years, like Mason Mount, who I think there's a lot of talent at Chelsea, and I think they can afford to lose some of it and just really get the best out of the talent that remains. Mason Mount, I think it'll be good for him as well to get out of that kind of basket case. Man United's probably a bit more stable than now, so probably a win-win there for everybody, I'd say.
Graham, see on the Nkuku one just before you. So my only question with that would be, is he not just another Raheem Sterling who's only just signed for them last season? Plays the same role, plays the same position. If he is being played in that position, then they still need a striker, Graham, don't they?
I wouldn't have compared him to
Really?
Sterling, to be
Off
honest.
the left wing?
Yeah, I just I feel like he could be very central, to be honest. It just depends on the way you're playing. Like when we saw him play against Rangers, one of those guys kind of got your heart in your mouth when he gets the ball. Oh, what's he going to do? Like we saw what he did with half a chance at Ibrox in the semi-final. Buried it. Really good goal, to be fair. A dagger through the heart, mind you, but it was a great goal. I think he will be a success. It's quite amazing to see. I mean, RB Leipzig have been absolutely stripped of every asset this summer. So just on them, actually, just off topic, you'll be wanting them in pot 2 of the Champions League if you get there, because I mean they've quite literally lost all their best players with Nkunku, your boy that's going to Liverpool, and Joseph Guardiola as well going to City. So I mean, amazing to see their assets being stripped so readily. But yeah, I think they'll all be a success. Just having seen a lot of these players firsthand through supporting Rangers, I really think they'll be a success in the Premier League.
So some of the names that we know of so far that are leaving Chelsea. So you've got Mendy, the goalkeeper, Koulibaly, Mount, Azpilicueta, Ziyech is on his way out, Lukaku's still on his way out, Kovacevic signed for Man City. How many more do you think that they're actually going to get rid of, or how many more would you expect to see move out?
I think the ones you've just mentioned, you're talking about Mendy for one. I mean,
Mhm.
they had two goalies there that were probably two of the most expensive goalies in the history of the game, right? Both
Mhm.
bought by Chelsea. What were they, about £170 million worth of goalie between him and thingy.
Uh,
What's his face? Arid
oh,
Kepa. I don't know
Kepa.
why.
They call him
Don't
Kepa.
know why. I don't know why I couldn't get one his name out there, and two
Unless
why I
we're
was then
Biaggi or
attempting
something.
his actual second name. So between those two, like no surprise to see Mendy going. I can only imagine the wage that really season. Not sure how
Mhm.
much they're getting for him. Look, in terms of the rest outgoings, I'm not sure. I think there's some players there that just aren't good enough. Like Conor
Mhm.
Gallagher for one. I would expect him to maybe a kind of lower
There's
league
there's
Premier League
talk
club coming out.
there's talk he's going to be used as a potential make weight in the Brighton discussions. Because obviously Brighton are potentially wanting. I think there was a quote I seen if Rice is 105 million, Casado is in the same bracket for them. So the talk is that Chelsea will potentially offer, because it's the centre back they've got as well, isn't it, Levi Colwill, that Brighton have already had an offer turned down for. So there's potential that that Gallagher and Levi Colwill as part of a deal to get Casado out, which probably makes the same a business. I seen something that kind of made me chuckle. It was the opening team for Chelsea last season, and of the starting 11, there's only 4 of them actually still at the club: Mendy, Silva, Koulibaly, Azpilicueta, Reece James, Kante, Jorginho, Chilwell, Sterling, Havertz, and Mount with the starting team. From that, you've got Chilwell, Sterling, James, and Silva are the only 4 players still at the club. That's mad. I don't think if you think about all the Premier League teams and to take that much of a drastic change, I'm not saying they didn't need it, but I can't remember that much of a big change in one season, if you like. But Colin, the big news is, well, the big rumor, shall we say, is that potentially Chelsea are going to go in for Kane in the last minute to try and force through this potential 90 million, 100 million deal. That's a big signing, and that's a big statement if they pull that one off.
It is. It really is. And I think in terms of I'm not usually a fan of the business that Chelsea do, but I do I do see the sense in this because
Mhm.
they do need a prolific striker instead of just signing an attacking midfielder and consistently playing them up front. Harry Kane would absolutely add so much to the Chelsea squad in terms of a completely different type of player, high quality as well. And I think he probably helps you get the best out of like in Gungu and
Mhm.
Mudryk and Sterling or whoever else. But I don't see Tottenham budging. I still
You think
don't
he'll
see
hold
them.
it?
I think he will hold out. Aye, and I think Daniel Levy, and we'll probably come here. I think
Mhm.
the pressure is on him for Ange to work out because I think, regardless of what we think north of the border, there is that south of the border, snobbery around anybody that comes to Scotland, whether it be a player or a manager. And the Tottenham fans are notably on his back about it, and I don't think there's very many really breeding confidence with Ange Postecoglou. Probably a bit premature, if I'm being honest. So I don't think Daniel Levy will put himself in the firing line with getting rid of the prize asset.
Fair enough. Okay. As I said, we could probably do a podcast on Chelsea alone with the amount of innings and outs that they've got going on in this window. So, as Graham alluded to, Liverpool have obviously just been in the news all day today because they've announced their second signing of the summer. So, Colin, they released 5 players at the end of the season. Sorry, 6 players at the end of the season, and they've so far secured 2 signings. They brought in Alexis McAllister for a reported 35 million from Brighton, and they've just announced today they've just picked up Soboslai from Leipzig. who I'm not going to lie, I'm very excited to see this lad. He's been brilliant anytime I've watched him. Hungarian captain. Do you know much about him? Have you seen him much, or are you looking more to Alexis McAllister being probably the star for them so far?
Only really in Rangers run to Seville, seen a bit of so basically, I'm glad you said it first because I knew the name, but I'm like, what the fuck do you say that? And I know there's been a fair bit of chat around them in Germany, and
Yeah.
back to Graham's point, Leipzig is absolutely getting ripped apart now. I think he will be a great signing. For what I see, and I think because he's very much a Klopp type player. He can play centrally, maybe play out wide as well. Can go either way for a central position, but
Yep.
he's looking at transfer market. He's got more than 20 games in over 6 positions over the last 2-3 years, which is brilliant. So I think that's Klopp does like a utility player, if you like. I'm excited to see how Alexis McAllister gets on at Liverpool. For me, he's a big one, and it's probably because I've not seen Szoboszlai as close as I have McAllister, but I really like Alexis McAllister, and as much as I would have liked to have seen how he done at Brighton in Europe, I think this is a good step up for him. It's a big step up, but I do think he is capable. Again, he can arguably play anywhere across the front line. I think in that pocket, but he'll do very well. What I'm surprised, however, is Liverpool. They've went for probably two of the more flair attacking players first and foremost, where I think they probably need a wee bit of stability and a wee bit of need to solidify their midfield a wee bit more. So I'd like to think they'd maybe go and do that next, but I think it's a very good start to the transfer window.
Graham, and obviously, as Colin touched on it there, that Liverpool let go of quite a lot of their midfield in terms of Naby Keita, James Milner, and so forth. Does it surprise you that they have brought in who they brought in, or are these the kind of players that they should be bringing in? Bearing in mind they've already still got Fabinho, they've got the young lad that played really well last season, Bjatic, Thiago, obviously once he's fit, and Jordan Henderson all still there.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all, to be honest. And I know Liverpool, they're also linked with Lavia from Southampton as well. I think he's been linked to a string of the bigger clubs. So no, doesn't surprise me at all. I think from midfield to the forward line, Liverpool became a wee bit stale last season, which was a big problem for them. I think they're bringing in young, fresh talent. I think Trent is going to be like a new player. Where he's getting played now for Liverpool and for England, probably just adds a completely different dimension to his game and for Liverpool. So I think they're buying the right players. I think they're freshening things up. I think they're adding more competition. I think it'll be good all round for Liverpool, to be honest.
And you just mentioned Lavia there. I'm literally just checking my feed, and apparently, breaking news from some of the reporters that Southampton rejected a 31 million bid for Lavia from Liverpool within the last 3 hours. So, Liverpool obviously looking to try and get their business done if that's the case. Another lad that they've been really keen on is Kepium Taram. Lilian Thuram's boy, he's over playing in the France under-21 team at the moment, and I think it's probably one of them two, either Lavia or Thuram, that actually probably come in for as the remaining spot. I would anticipate us still to bring in another defender. At the beginning of the window, there was a lot of talk about Benjamin Pavard. I'd be all over that like a rash. I think he's a brilliant player, and as Colin said, as you said, it frees up Trent a little bit. I just don't know whether that's the kind of player they're going to bring in. I think they'll probably bring in another centre back. But striker wise, yeah, I think the attacking forward, the attacking options are pretty much nailed on. But yeah, looking forward to it. I'm not as butthurt about missing out on Bellingham anymore, if I'm honest. I thought Bellingham would have been the absolute dynamic player for us. But if you think about the money that he just went to Madrid for, we've obviously brought in two players for that transfer fee, so I can't really argue with it. On Bellingham, obviously that was a big signing out of the Premier League. Sorry, not out of the Premier League, but turning down the Premier League. Do you think he'll do well over in Madrid, Graham?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, the age he is, he'll be there. I think he'll be there for most of the rest of his career. I mean, listen, with all due, in my personal opinion, Real Madrid are the best and biggest club in the world. I think the minute they get involved in any transfer, I don't think you can blame anyone for that's the club they want to go to. So I think the minute Real Madrid got involved, that's probably where he was set. I don't think you really need much discussion to be sold on Real Madrid. There isn't a football player that doesn't know about Real Madrid, the history they have, and just the pool. I think he'll be there for at least the next decade. I think he'll be an unbelievable success. And I mean, he's going to be there and he's going to be learning from somebody like a Modric, etc., playing next to him. I don't know if this will be his last season or whatnot. So, look, he'll do well. He will absolutely do well. And the fact that the age he is just frightening, to be honest.
It's mad to think he's 19 years old and he's got. It's not even the games under his belt. It's the experience of those kind of games that he's got under his belt. For 19 years old, it's just frightening. You know, even Gerrard, and I always compare him to Gerrard, but Gerrard didn't have that kind of level of experience at that age. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
he's
think
next level
he'll
for me.
go on. I think he will go on to probably be seen as England's greatest ever player. I'll be honest. I don't know how many caps it's realistically earning and stuff, but I just think the guy, there's no limit to how far he can go and what he can achieve in the game.
His ceiling's very high. Really looking forward to see how he develops. Colin, just a touch on Bellingham. Any thoughts from you?
It's very hard not to get overhyped and excited about him, and you know, I can't really add anything else that you boys haven't said. I think he is going to be a generational talent. What I do really like is his attitude. I mean, I don't know if I'm maybe being unfair to maybe the likes of Mbappe or anything, but you do see young players come through and there is that air of, I think you need an air of arrogance to some degree, but very much realising and demanding you're the main man. Jude Bellingham, it isn't like that. He does very much do his talking on the pitch, and I think it takes a certain type of personality to go to Real Madrid and not get sucked in with the Galactico. I think he will just go and play his football, and you know, I think the fans will endear him there. Yeah, 20 years old, and I'm not surprised. Again, just as Graham said, Real Madrid will trump it. Real Madrid and Barcelona will pretty much trump 99% of clubs 99% of the time, unless there is that allegiance. I don't really know if he'll quite go there for the rest of his career. I think he will be there for like 4 or 5 years. I think he will end up in England at some point. Again, he's playing abroad for. Say he's there at Real Madrid for 4 years. He's been abroad for most of his adult life. I think we will see him in England, but I think even in a few years' time, he'll have his pick of the bunch. But no, I think we're going to see big things for Bellingham.
I've got to say, 19 years old, the money he's already going for. If you do envisage him going to England, we're talking about his peak years. I mean,
310 grand is on it. 310 grand is on at Madrid.
Aye.
Yeah, I think the biggest.
It
does. The biggest compliment I can give him.
At that point.
The biggest compliment I can give him is that he was the Borussia Dortmund captain at 19 years old. Like, there's not many players you can say like that, you know. And as you said, it kind of goes back to having that arrogance, that swagger, that confidence that he has. I think Bellingham owes it. So disappointed he didn't come to the Premier League, but I totally get it. I think as Graham said, when Madrid come knocking, then it is what it is, isn't it? Colin, that'll bring us on to our next one. So, one of the big teams that we obviously expected a lot to happen, but it hasn't happened as yet. It's probably more about people going out. Is Manchester City? Obviously, they won the treble. They've lost their captain Gundogan, who's signed for Barcelona. There's talk that Bernardo Silva is going to be going for apparently 400 grand a week over in Saudi Arabia, and apparently Riyad Mahrez, is apparently talking to a team as well. Are they missing a trick here in terms of players that they should be going out and getting? Or, I mean, what kind of players do we envisage they potentially should be bringing in?
I'm not as worried about Man City. I'll be honest in terms of the business that they do, because it's been the same anecdote over the last 3-4 years where, you know, when we talk about depth in the Premier League, a lot of teams struggle to go past the 1 to 14 players. Man
Yeah.
City could field 2 separate teams and probably win the league.
Yeah.
Or at least be challenging in the top 4. So they have that depth. I think they're biding their time. I don't think, even with Gundogan, Bernardo Silva and Mahrez going, I don't think that really strippers them for the start of the season. So I don't think there's really that mad dash to get folk in up and running by the 1st of August. So I think they will bide their time and see what happens in the market, because it's very easy to almost play your hand too early, play your chips. I think they'll wait and see, because they've got the spending power. They can outspend the majority of clubs in the world. I think it's very Guardiola-esque to analyse it and think about it. What I would say is, it's I said at the start, I'm probably worried about what this Saudi league will start to bring over the next 3-4 years. Will it end up like the PGA? What hand with that, the split?
I thought you meant they were going to start hitting sticks and stuff. I'm like, well, no, I can't do that in football.
Well, you never know, mate. You never know, mate. Make it a wee bit more interesting. These none each games that we see in the mid-table of Premier League, that might add a bit of spice. But yeah, it sounds daft. I thought Gundogan was fucking unreal last season, like from start to finish, and it'd be a big loss. But if there's any team that can afford to lose him and still get by, it's Man City.
Well, they brought in Kovacevic, haven't they? But he's not a like-for-like replacement, but they have brought in experience. Graham, does it surprise you, considering last season they went out and made a statement, and they brought Holland in, and the whole window was about how Holland was going to do? Are you surprised they haven't done something similar, based on the fact that they knew they were losing people this window?
No, not really. Kind of what Colin's saying, they're already set. I think it's never bad to freshen things up after a treble winning season. Like, yeah, they're winning these top players. They're losing these top players. They have brought in a couple of decent players already. As I say, Gvardiol is an excellent young
He's still to be
player.
confirmed, that one, isn't he?
I think
There's talk that
it's done.
they'll have to break the defender record for that one, won't they?
I'm pretty sure it's done. I usually go with your man Fabrimano on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure I don't know if he's given it the old here we go yet, but
He's not giving it the here we go yet.
Is he not? Is he not?
No, not yet.
So it looks like, yeah, as you're saying, it would make him the most expensive defender in history. Probably again well worth it, and it's all about like if you're willing to pay that for somebody and you think they're going to improve your team exponentially, and listen, absolutely. I do think they're big losses, but as Colin says, they'll get by, and it depends who they bring in. The sky's the limit. Who's not going to want to move to Man City just now, after last season and the team they have? So yeah, we'll see what happens.
I kind of feel sorry for Mahrez. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's brilliant. I think he could do a turn for 90% of the Premier League teams. But for Man City's point, it just means Foden gets more game time, doesn't it? So he's obviously the next generational talent for them. So for their point, I can understand it. But yeah, disappointed that Mahrez is going to potentially the Saudi League. Okay, that'll bring us across the other side of Manchester then. So Manchester United, who apparently we're going to have the summer of all summers, and get the transfers of all transfers. It's been awfully quiet, hasn't it? They've all but confirmed Mason Mount. I think they've just got to agree on a structure for the deal. But arguably the biggest noise has been around the goalkeeper, David De Gea's proposed reversal of contract. Did you hear this story? What did you make of it, Graham?
I don't know if I'd only heard it for you, to be honest. The reversal. Look, if it's true, yeah, obviously it's a strange one. I know he was offered a new contract at kind of heavily reduced wages. I have no idea what kind of numbers. I think.
Well, he was on 375 apparently, so it was heavily reduced from that. Yeah, 375 grand for a goalkeeper they've been paying. So apparently the story goes is that he accepted the reduced wages. However, Manchester United have actually regained on the contract and have thrown it out and said we want to reduce it even further. The one thing that we don't know is whether De Gea's had that contract for a month now and he's only just signed it, and in that month they decided to go a different avenue, or whether they offered it last week and they pulled it the day after. That's the key bit of information I think we don't know.
listen, I think it's more than likely they have looked at the situation as a whole, and they've kind of thought, are we getting good value out of this, or
Mhm.
could we get value elsewhere? They've been linked to Nana
I
from
was going
Inter,
to come on to him. Yeah.
and they might go, well, what will take us to buy him and pay him? Are we really getting that good value out of offering De Gea a new contract for X? De Gea's been there long enough. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone's seen it on social media. Someone's made
The
like
1 hour 47-minute
yeah,
clip
1 hour 47 movie, essentially about
of
his
all the bad
highlights.
save he's done.
Do you know what I mean? He's been there over
Yeah.
a decade now.
Yeah.
I think it's time for him to move on. I think it'd be good for his career actually to reignite it, and for Man U to go out and get a new goalie. I think, yeah, Mount. I think Mount is an interest man. Me
Mhm.
personally, when I see Tottenham signing Madison, I know we'll get onto that, signing Madison for 40 million, I think that is an absolute bargain. And then when you see Man U going to sign Mount from Chelsea for 60 million, 320k a week, I do feel
Mhm.
like they're being a bit robbed in a way.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It's not how I thought Man U would go about their transfer business. I do think there's also that part of there's some players in their squad that may be looking to move out for money, whether that's Maguire, McTominay, etc. Players that they could get a decent
Mhm.
enough bit of cash from, free up some wages, and then go and replace with better quality players. I don't know. It's just, as you've said, it's quiet. But look at his early days. This is what
Yeah.
set first, 2nd July, whatever we are. The window's just open, so I'm sure there'll be plenty to come from them.
I seen that meme the other day that was doing the trends, and it was Harry Maguire refreshing his phone, waiting for Fabio Romano to say Saudis had put in a bid for him. Colin, Graham obviously kind of alluded to what Manchester United apparently are doing in the process, and that's trying to bring in the Inter Milan goalkeeper Andrea Nana. If they're obviously changing goalkeeper, then that's obviously a good option for them. However, the reported 90 million fee, that sounds crazy considering that they've still got to go out and buy a striker, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I think I don't know. I think it is always the extreme comparisons. What do you see as more important, a goalkeeper or a
Mm,
striker? Strikers can win you games, great goalkeepers can win you leagues, and I do believe in that. And I do think, I think in the modern game now as well, where the traditional number 9 and number 10, it's not a big guy, a wee guy up front anymore. The game's different. Or there's,
mhm,
we see fullbacks join the attack, and I do think Man U they are playing in a style where they aren't relying on an out and out prolific number 9. I think they are looking to, get goals for all areas of the pitch. The wide men midfield, and I think Mason Mount going in, it's just another option with that alongside the likes of, Rashford had a great season
mhm.
last year. You've got Anthony Martial, you've got Sancho, who
Sancho.
I do really like. So I think the keeper would be a bigger priority, and if you're going to spend more money, if you get the same level of service for Nana as you do De Gea, how long's he been at Man U? 10 year, 90 millions, it's a steal, and I really do rate the boy Nana as well. What is
Mhm.
he? Early to mid 20s too, probably approaching the peak of his career. Good bit of business, and I think it probably is something that Man U do need, and I think David De Gea, him moving on, it'll be just another bit, of refreshing change in Man U. I think that's been a big thing for them over the last 2 3 years. To get stability in the management and structure of the club, but also weeding out all the kind of the old guard for the
Mhm.
less successful period. The likes of Pogba. I'm not saying De Gea has been as toxic, but he's a big character, and I think it will suit Man U to move him on. But they do need an elite level goalkeeper, and that's probably what you pay for elite level goalkeepers.
I always remember. Do you not remember when there was that big drama with De Gea when he was in the middle of changing back to Atletico Madrid, or was it Real Madrid? But the fax machine didn't work at the 11th hour, so he ended up staying at Man U anyway. So it shouldn't be a surprise that he's ultimately going to end up going, shall we say? But it just surprises me that they've been paying A, that much money for a goalkeeper. B, they're potentially going to break the record for a goalkeeper. And the whole way through last season, they were calling about a striker, number 9, someone to play off, because Wout Weghorst obviously wasn't that one. Um, So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I do believe they've still got a lot of people to shift on though. There's talk Fred's going, potentially McTominay. Maguire's already been called out. You've already got Wan-Bissaka, who's potential. There's so many options that they've got, but whether that funds a striker, I don't know. I think you'd be half worried if you were a Man U fan, but all at the same time, you just want to know what the plan is because there's this potential sale still going through, isn't there? The next team, just call it, is Newcastle. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm mega surprised. I thought Newcastle would have hit the transfer market, head on, bringing in, not necessarily breaking the records for all players, but bringing in people that improve their squad. They've brought in one player at the moment, which is a transfer record for them. I think it was 65 million for Sandro Tonali from AC Milan, which, I'm not gonna lie, kind of came out of nowhere. Have you seen much of this guy, Graham? I've seen him a few times, but I didn't think he was 65 million.
I can't say I know bundles about him other than maybe the odd game last season. That I'd seen him.
Champions
I
League.
can't in the Champions League. I can't say I'm totally wired into the Serie A week in week out, unfortunately. But in terms of what you've mentioned about their spending, I think it was made clear actually just before the season ended that they weren't going to go in some sort of crazy spending spree this summer. And that Howe was, I say only, but only going to get between 75 and 100 million. So I'm not shocked that this might be it, or maybe it'll be one more player, and they're heavily just focusing on again improving that starting 11, rather than just splurging for the sake of it. I think so far, other than Anthony Gordon, I think their signings have been really astute, really good, spent their money well, and they're not just flinging it at anyone. So yeah, no reason to think this won't be a really successful signing for them so far. And maybe, as I say, maybe we'll see them sign one more.
The one red flag I had with it was that well, from what, if you read the reports, Tonali didn't want to move at all. He was forced out by Milan because they needed the money. Apparently, he cried in front of the team when he was told that he was being sold. To be brought over to, I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, how many Italians actually succeed in the English Premier League to spend 65 million on a player that potentially didn't want to come? And as you said, if you're going to get 100 million as your potential window, you've just split 65 of that on somebody who realistically might not want to have come. No, it's obviously could be complete bullshit, but it's more than one source that's this kind of reported that.
Listen, there's always things like that. I don't think it's necessarily bullshit. Sometimes a player, I remember, right now, if you've not listened to the podcast, the Emiliano Sala story about obviously his plane went down on the way to Cardiff, etc. It's a really interesting one, and part of that story was he didn't actually really want to leave Nons. He wanted to sign a new contract, but they needed the money, so they sold him, and he went. And look, obviously, you can't force somebody to sign a contract. They might not necessarily want it. They might not necessarily want to leave the club they're at, but it happens, and I don't think arm behind your back, force sign a contract for hundreds of £1,000s a week at an English Premier League club or whatever. So yeah, maybe strange one, and I know from Pat, listened to loads of ex-managers, players, etc. that have played in the North England. They've always said, look, it's hard for these clubs to actually attract some of the biggest players because they just don't want to live in the North England. It's not London. They don't want to live there. So maybe is that a factor for some of the players Newcastle can't attract? Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, we'll see how the boy performs. It can be hard settling in anyway. And yeah, I guess if you're Newcastle, you've just got to hope that he hits the ground running.
To be fair, there was a report saying that they were in for Szoboszlai as well, but he opted to go to Liverpool. So I would envisage they all being active. Colin, if I were told you at the end of last season that Newcastle would finish in the top four, qualify for the Champions League, going to go into this summer to reignite their squad, and potentially going to go to the Bernabeu in a Champions League match with the likes of Jacob Murphy, Do you think that's what anybody would have guessed that, or do you think anybody would have been more realistic, or did we all just envisage Mbappe's and stuff coming through?
I find the answer probably is somewhere in the middle. I, I'm surprised we've not heard more from them. I'm not surprised they've not went mental.
Hmm.
I think with the first couple of months of this takeover, they made it very clear that this isn't we're not going to try go for mid-table Premier League to Champions League winners in 1 season or 2 seasons. It's going to be a gradual process, and I think we all really compared it to what was hammed at Man City, where it wasn't very much like Chelsea try and buy
Hmm.
with no foresight, and he's just try and buy for that season. There's a bit of forward thinking going ahead at Newcastle, and it's a journey. Having said that, I do think they needed to add real quality and a couple of probably marquee signings. I don't really know if Tonali is. I mean, I didn't think they struggled too much in the middle of the park. Coming in, bringing him in, adding a midfield general, I don't really think that was their biggest priority, if I'm being honest. So I would have thought they would have had a couple of rumours in a wee bit more earlier, but I still think they will add a couple, and it won't be dozens of players. I think they'll maybe spend big on another one or two players,
Hmm.
maybe around the 50-60 million mark, with the view of them being there for the next 4 to 5 years at least.
There was talk. I think it'd be a really good signing for them, but there was talk that obviously if City do pick up Gvardiol, then Laporte was potentially going to be an option, for somebody. And I think that'd be a good coup for somebody like Newcastle. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what their model is going into the next season. Whether they stick with your Joe Lintons being in your first 11, so forth. But it's still early. Transfer window, still a few more. We've still got a few more weeks until the season actually starts. Um, bring you on to the next team now. So you guys touched on it. Arguably the biggest sign of the summer so far is Ange Postecoglou going into Tottenham. Now, allegiances aside, is that going to be a good signing for them? Do you think he'll get the time?
I said that would be one of the biggest issues, that he wouldn't get the time, to be honest.
Okay.
However, saying that, the fact Daniel Levy's given him a 4-year contract, you've got to imagine that regardless of how the start goes, whether he hits the ground running or whether it's a rocky start, it's obviously about whether the fans are patient enough, but I think Levy's definitely going to plan to give him it. He's not giving him a 4-year contract. I think that's very unusual for Tottenham to hand out that sort of length of contract to a manager. So from a board point of view, yes. Did the fans give him the time? We'll see.
Well,
It
half of the
just
fans
depends.
have already made the mind up, haven't they?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of them were pretty disappointed with him. Um, Obviously, somebody coming from Scotland's never great.
Hmm.
So look, yeah, I do actually think he'll do quite well if he's given the time. I think Maddison is a ridiculously good signing for that amount of
Hmm.
money when we're talking about English Premier League. I see they're signing Manos Salomon as well. There's a lot of clubs after
Yep.
him after his performances at Fulham. So they're building an interesting squad. We'll see what they have. I guess it's just all about Kane. I do think Kane's going to stay, for at least one more
Hmm.
season. Give it a roll of the dice with one more new manager and then go for there. I think the English Premier League goal record that is a big staying power now. It's got to be that is etching your name into the history of the game, rather than moving to a Bayern Munich to win a few trophies. Like, winning trophies, what it's all about, but you can win. You can win the double or treble in Germany all you want for 2 or 3 years. However,
I personally
if you
don't
can
see
be
it
the
as that big of an accolade. See, winning the Golden Boot or the top goals. I just don't. I don't
I
get
don't know.
why that's so
I th-
lucrative. I don't get
because
it.
but look how long she. I think when you're that close to it, why would
She was got the
actually?
title though. She
But
was got the Premier League title.
your name is at the top of that list for X
Hmm.
number of years. It's always going to be there. You're not going to be budged until the next superstar comes along. That is a big goal tally,
Hmm.
to overtake somebody like Alan Shearer. Look, it's a difficult one. I think in an ideal
Yeah.
world, he'd stay in England and move to a Man U or a Chelsea, win some trophies, and get over that 260 goal mark. I think when you're that close to it and you can taste it, I think it's a big lure for him.
The Bayern Munich one's is a strange one because I think we talked in the chat that Bayern Munich don't normally pay the kind of fees that potentially is going to take to get Harry Kane out of Tottenham. The report is that if in order for Daniel Levy to maybe look outside of the UK as a sale, you're probably talking about £90 million. For anybody inside the UK, you're talking over 100 million is probably what they've been reporting. And I don't really disagree with that. I think that's pretty fair. If he's going to go abroad, a Bayern Munich sounds about right. Come to for his talent. I'd rather win a treble at Bayern Munich. I don't know. I just don't see this goal scoring tally as being lucrative as potentially as some people do. I think Harry Redknapp let it out the bag the other day as well. Though he said something like that Harry Kane's apparently got a new family home being built in London right now. So why would you go abroad if you've got that and you've got a new baby on the way? It sounds very much he is going to stay in the UK.
Look, it does depend. I don't know. I just think I'm not here to debate would I rather trophies or whatever, right, or a goal record. Look, it is all about winning trophies, absolutely. But when you're that close to that record, and he'll be England's top leading goal scorer as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're that is a big deal. That is a big deal. Those are things that your name is etched there forever. If he were to
until somebody beats it.
No, but if he moved to Real Madrid or Barcelona and was there for 1 or 2 seasons and won 5-6 trophies, right? That's great. That's great for his personal goal haul. But Harry Kane's name then isn't etched in the history of the game in England or Spain, is it? I think it's this longevity. It's having this legacy, and having that will give him a legacy. At this
Colin,
age,
I can see you jumping at the bits here.
Go, Colin. Go, let's hear it.
Go.
I've said time and time again that Harry Kane's greatest ever triumph will be the answer to question number 4 in the sporting round of the Gallant Few's summer quiz in years to come once he retires. I get it's no mean feat what he's done, absolutely unbelievable, but you said it time and time again, football's about winning trophies, and his name will be in the record books until somebody else overtakes it. If he wins a medal, nobody can ever take it away from him. And it's a shame because I think a player of his talent deserves a countless number of medals. It really does. I don't want to. I probably sound harsh when I speak about him. I think he is a talent that he does deserve trophy after trophy. But I do agree with Graham. I think that's, regardless of my thoughts on it or your thoughts on it, that's what's keeping them there.
Not to call it all about Kane, but they obviously have confirmed a few signings themselves. So as Graham confirmed, the Madison's obviously been sworn in. They've made, the loan. They've took up the 2 loans that they had, which was Kulusevski and Pedro Porro. So those deals were always going to happen. I do believe the Madison deal got across the line though, because there was something about Harry Winks going the opposite direction for a different fee was probably a bit of a sweetener. But there's still more to go out there, isn't there? From Tottenham, there's still more to come in, surely.
I think I think any new manager comes into a job, any a team like Tottenham, with certain assurances what type of spending power they're going to have, and I think Postecoglou he will be. If we look at what he's done at Celtic and what he's done elsewhere in his career, he does build for the front and work his way back. He likes aggressive attacking football, and taking my Rangers hat off here, like, he is a good coach. There's no getting away from that. I think he will do well down there. I do. Again, whether or not he gets the time, that's a different subject. We've seen how shambolic Celtic looked at the start of last season, or season before, sorry, and how they turned it around. So he does need that time to embed his own style. But I think there will be a lot of business done with Tottenham.
I'll ask you a question. Go on. I'll ask you a question. Just see on. Do you don't have to name a name, but do you think they come back to Celtic and take anybody?
No, I don't. I don't think. If he'd maybe went to I don't know, a Wolves or something, maybe it's because we're at that top end, and regardless if we think they should be
Mhm.
there or not, or Tottenham see themselves as a top 4 Champions League club.
The snobbery
Right,
kicking in.
the snobbery, and I think they will be looking at a higher end edge of player. So I don't think there's somebody in Scotland that does that consistently enough to head there straight away.
Graham, what do you think?
I think they will. I think it will.
Yeah. Okay.
I think.
I think he will. However, I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't something in his clause to say he couldn't shop at Celtic for a season or something.
Nah,
But again,
none of that. I mean, he was on a rolling contract at Celtic, so essentially, I don't think there was much say from Celtic's end, to be honest. Whether I don't know if they got compensation or whatever, but I would. There will certainly not be any clauses there if he
Who
doesn't go
interests
from.
Graham? What player do you think? Carter Vickers?
I wasn't going to put him on the
Nah.
spot, but go on then.
Nah.
No, I think if
Didn't Carter Vickers
Postecoglou
come
was,
from Spain? Didn't he come from Tottenham?
yeah.
I think he did, aye.
So
Yeah,
I
don't think
think
he goes back there.
I just don't see that. I think if he was to go back and look to take anyone, you're looking at Kyogo, or you give Callum McGregor a last roll of the dice and I go at the Premier League. That's two players from a Postecoglou point of view. I'm not here to discuss who's good enough or not for
That's
Premier
fine.
League,
Yeah.
or if they're going into the first 11 or their squad players. But I think if those were two players that he would want to take, that's maybe it. But like we see it all the time, managers go and they don't necessarily go back and take players, especially as you have said, Tottenham are trying to get into the top 4. So when they're spending cash on, they've just spent 40 million euros on Pedro Porro, they've just spent 40 million quid on Maddison, etc.
Mhm.
It's maybe unlikely they'll go back to Celtic, but those would be the two I would think he would maybe look at.
That's fair enough. It was just a general thought that, whether because obviously it's went a bit quiet. It's just whether or not that would probably ramp up a little bit, considering that they are losing somebody to Saudi Arabia real soon.
What I was going to say is just about Heung-min Son gaining a year in age, obviously, the South Korean law
Is he not a
change. I
year
mean,
younger? Is he not a year
yeah,
younger?
exactly. He's gained a year back. So, like,
It's
Daniel
so
Levy's
stupid.
got that. I can imagine him in his office doing one of those kind of Anchorman things, where he's jumped up and like pumping the air, like, because the value an extra year brings for somebody at Son's class is probably like 20 million or something like that.
Tell that to Son's knees. He'll still be the right fucking age.
So unbelievable that law change. Anyone with a South Korean player's just delighted by the value probably increasing with that extra year they've got. So yeah,
Fantastic.
incredible.
We'll scale down the league a little bit, just purely for the fact that we've obviously spoke about Declan Rice, which means that West Ham are going to be in the money a little bit. Now, the talk is that the reason why the deal hasn't been signed and sealed yet is because West Ham want a generous amount of cash up front. They don't want it as Klarna payments over the next 7 years. They want it within, I think they want the full transfer fee paid within the next 18 months, which means that they can go out and potentially pick up transfers themselves. Do you see them spending a lot of it? Do you see players coming in? What kind of shopping are they going to do? Considering they won a European trophy and they're battling it out again. What's your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they'll reinvest. The thing with West Ham is, I read something about Chelsea's long list of fails when they're talking about strikers. When I think of failure is transfers for strikers, I always go back to West Ham. They always seem to just have this long list of players that they look to purchase, and it doesn't seem to work out. The most recent one, obviously, being Skamaka, who I actually thought, okay, he's hit the ground, he scored a few goals. I know he got hit with an injury, etc. But I'm a wee bit surprised. I don't think he was that much of a fail, but I guess what do I know? So it looks like he's maybe going to Roma. I'm not sure on the price. I've not actually looked at that, but obviously with Rice going, you're not. It looks like it's like an 80 million to 90 million what they want, more kind of close to an up front with the rest add-ons. So that sort of hard cash, absolutely reinvest. They're going into the Europa League next season. They didn't have the best season in the Premier League, so I think David Moyes has probably been sat down as well and told in no uncertain terms they can't be in some sort of relegation scare, I'll call it, because they kind of got out of the battle maybe certainly in the last quarter of the season. So I just think they'll have expectations of at least pushing to kind of that mid-table this season, and a fairly decent show in the Europa League. So yeah, I fancy them maybe spending that in 3 or 4 decent players. But as always for me, they just need to get it right up front.
Yeah, Colin, it was funny. You'll like this because I think you one of these kind of stories come out, and it was a football phone in, and it was West Ham fans after the final. It was probably about 2 weeks after the final. They were saying, "Is David Moyes the man to go into next season?" And 90% of the fans were going, "Well, let's give him a couple of games in the next season to see how he starts." And you go, "Hang on, you're going to sell Declan Rice. You're going to allow David Moyes to help buy £100 million worth of players, but you've got to give him a couple of days, a couple of games just to kind of see himself in." Is he going to get the time?
I think the European trophy will absolutely give him a wee bit more time, and I think, like most clubs, I think the pressure for the fans always outweighs the pressure for the board, because the fans ultimately put pressure on the board, and um, I don't know. I think we with Moyes, like I think Moyes standing in the game is still tarnished for Man U and his first spell at West Ham as well, and I think it's probably a bit unfair, and I think he struggles to shake that. He's the his career as a manager probably does deserve a wee bit better. And if it was MD else that had just had the season he had last season or the last 2 seasons, we are probably saying, "Oh no, he absolutely gets all the time in the world." But because it is David Moyes, I think that's where the hesitancy comes for the fans. So I don't know. I don't think he will get the time, and I don't think that is quite right. I think there will be pressure on him. So he does need to get it right. He does have to get it right early on.
What I was going to say is as well, like I think it's worth just keeping a wee eye on West Ham in the Europa League this season again anyway, because when you look at really in the cold light of day, if you look at the gulf in quality between the Conference League and the Europa League, it is not huge. It's not like the
Yeah.
drop between the Champions League and the Europa League, right, which is a huge gulp. The difference between the Conference and the Europa isn't mental at
It's
all.
the Champions League drop off into it. It's the Champions
Yeah,
League teams dropping into it.
yeah,
That's about the only difference.
absolutely. So I think West Ham could have a fair, decent enough run. Like you saw Roma win the Conference League and then go all the way to the Europa, deep in the Europa League as well. Obviously, they've got Marino. I'm not comparing Marino and Moyes. I'm just saying that the quality of squad that they got to the Conference League then gets to the Europa League the next season final. So. I think keep a wee eye on them in Europe. I think they might have a wee deep-ish run next season. But again, for me, and kind of what Colin's saying, it's all about the Premier League. They've got to be more
Yeah.
mid-table-ish and a good run in Europe. That I think that's what Moyes has been told. If after the first kind of quarter of the season they're kind of 15th, 16th, unfortunately for him, I think it could probably be curtains.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Um, the last thing I wanted to touch on is probably just more. We are on the 2nd of July, so a lot of contracts pretty much terminated at the beginning of yesterday morning. So there's still some big names out there that if they've not already went to Saudi Arabia. De Gea is obviously the one we've already talked about. So there's still a possibility that he stays at Manchester United. We don't know yet. But Zaha's a free agent. Jesse Lingard's a free agent. Yerry Mina's a free agent. Adama Traore, Luca Moira, Willian from Fulham. That was a surprising one. I didn't realise he was a free agent. Do you see any of these moving around within the Premier League? Do you think? So, for example, I see Lingard going to America. I think Lingard's been angling for an American deal for quite a while. But Zaha's probably the best talented one out of the lot of them. What's your thoughts on that again?
And yeah, interesting. I think Lingard no to the Premier League, absolutely not. I think he's just maybe he's ran his race there. So yeah, wherever
Sat in
he
the bench
goes,
last season, didn't he?
yeah, just it won't be the Premier League. Zaha's an interesting one now. It's a weird one. I don't think it can be all about the money for him. I think he wants to actually win some trophies
Mhm.
and play a high level of football. I think he's probably still a bit resentful about how it worked out at Man U. He's a lot better than kind of what he showed there and how that didn't work out. It's an interesting one. I don't know. I said last season it would be good to see him at an Arsenal if they're looking to build more squad depth. And we always talk at Arsenal their squad depth. If they're willing to chuck 150 to 200k a week at him for free, then I mean, go for it. That's what I say. But I think he might end up at one of the kind of top 7 Premier League clubs that are playing in Europe this season. So I wouldn't rule out any of those just with that kind of lure for him to play in that. I don't see him at one of the big 4 though. I don't actually see him go to an Arsenal.
So you're probably talking like a Newcastle or something then maybe?
Maybe a Newcastle, maybe Villa.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like, I think the team Villa are looking to build and what they're trying to achieve. I think Zaha would be an unbelievable sign for them. So yeah.
My thoughts were actually Newcastle or Spurs. I think Spurs have shot themselves in the foot with no adding a decent enough backup for Harry Kane there the last few years. Maybe I'm being a bit unfair.
What are you talking about? They went out and brought Richarlison.
Oh, the irony. I was really excited when Richarlison signed for Spurs as well. I thought he would have done great, but I don't know. I think regardless that top 7, I don't think he really walks in and he's the main man. But I think he is looking for a bit of swan song and maybe to get a chance at winning a couple of trophies, as Graham said. So I think Newcastle or Spurs wee bit of run in Europe, and I think he would add a different option to both their clubs.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Adama Traore. He's somebody that's always had great potential and never really lived up to the hype. You know, even he went back to Barcelona a couple of seasons ago, didn't really do it. He's very one-trick pony, but he's very, very direct in what he does do. Do you see him staying around in the Premier League at all?
I think I don't know if he'll move up. To be honest, I think he is, and I think he has had his chances, but I don't think he quite has the same stock as what maybe Wilfred Zaha has. Also, they're two completely different type of players. But I thought Wolves is probably his level. So if he does, it's maybe somebody, maybe like a Crystal Palace or a Fulham, even a Brentford or a Brighton. I think he might stay in the Premier League, but I don't see him getting a big jump up to like a Newcastle or a Spurs, as we're saying about Zaha.
Cool. Well, as I said, they were just some of the free agents that I would have had Bobby Firmino on that list, but he's already signed for one of the Saudi Arabian teams. So sad to see him go, but for the money he's getting, it's pretty. It's not hard to justify why he wouldn't. So I think we're talking the best part of 400 grand a week for these kind of players going over there. Yeah, so appreciate guys getting together just to talk about some of the transfers that we have seen, or the ones that we're talking about. I do believe that I think I made a prediction at the beginning of the window that I do believe Chelsea might break the transfer record again for an English Premier League game. So I think we're not far away from that, and the Casino one might actually topple that one over for us. But I think some big teams that we've already talked about still have a lot to do, including my own team, Liverpool. But yeah, what we'll probably do is try and get another show in a couple of weeks' time, just before, obviously, I think the season kicks off around about the second week of August, and we've got a few things that we're talking about that we want to try and bring into the next season, a bit of fun, and obviously something that's in support of the gallant few subscribers as well. But Colin, listen, I really appreciate you kind of taking up some of your time this Sunday, just to kind of chat these things through. And Graham, same back for you as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we'll shall see you both in a couple of weeks' time.